From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
Welcome into the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host for today, Andre Johnson Jr., and all the way in California, fresh off the Saints preseason opener, is Fazende. We've got a lot to get into today, but first, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, share, rate, and review. Hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any more of our fire content. If you're watching on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, hello. Glad you have found us here. I got to do the intro today. You can tell I don't typically do that because Sean's on the road. Sean, how's Cali? You're looking like you're having a good time on the beach.
Listen, it's a slight breeze in my hair right now, as you can kind of tell. I'm a freak about my hair, so to get the breeze blowing through the hair is a good thing. We're at Inspiration Point out here. It's Newport Beach, Corona Del Mar, which I think Corona Del Mar is within Newport Beach. I got to probably talk to a local about that, but we're overlooking the beautiful Pacific Ocean. I mean, look, how can you not be inspired by being out here? So it has been a good stretch, a good body of work so far out here on the West Coast for the Saints and for obviously the Chargers preseason opener. Now we got a whole lot to talk about with a game under our belt. But to your initial question, yes, I'm enjoying my time in California. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. It's chill back here. It's calm. It's not as probably cool and breezy as it is in Cali, but you know what? We're making it work. Just like the Saints kind of made it work yesterday in that preseason opener. We saw Spencer Rattler get the start. He went 7 for 11, 53 passing yards, 22 rushing yards, and he lost a fumble. Then just after the 2-minute warning in the first half, Tyler Shough comes in. He goes 15 for 22 during his time, 165 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Now, we've been talking about this quarterback battle since April, but now we've finally gotten to see both of them in live game action. And Sean, I think anybody who watched the game can see that Tyler Shough looked a little better than Spencer Rattler. But now that we've seen preseason game number 1, can we officially say that Tyler Shough has surpassed Spencer Rattler in this quarterback battle for QB1?
All right. Great topic, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of comments about this.
They already
one.
In the
But this
comments.
is where I am at. This is where I have arrived with this Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shough situation. You and I were both early in camp. We were hard on Shough. We were.
Yeah.
We were actually getting a little frustrated with him the first 5 or 6 practices. Looked indecisive, looked hesitant, looked like everything was going too fast. Looked like at that time Spencer Rattler was going to run away with this thing and basically be sort of like, look, Shough's just not ready. Well, since that time, and I will go back to that Thursday indoor practice as the turning point for me, Shough has continued to get better and better and caught on and gotten more comfortable. I am not ready to say he has surpassed Spencer Rattler. I am ready to say this competition is as close as it has ever been. And obviously Tyler Shough is trending in the right direction. One thing that really jumps out as I left the stadium last night at SoFi Stadium, we have now seen 3 game-like situations, 2 scrimmages, and now a preseason game. We have to acknowledge that Shough has now played significantly better in those 3 game-like situations than any of the scripted practices. So is that a sign that he's a quote-unquote gamer? Is that a sign that maybe he does better when there's less script and there's more of a free flow of a football game? Or we're getting more and more information, more and more data that suggests that might be the case. What you saw last night basically was a player that was thrust into a situation that was not easy. Well, the 2-minute drill as his first drive, and yet body language was good, and he really handled that first drive really like a pro, like he had done it before. And that was his first drive, as a professional quarterback. It should also be brought up that he dealt with a couple of different adverse situations within the game. I thought he played well, but I also like how he played in terms of there were a lot of good moments, but there was a lot of things that he missed to teach off of, to where there is a lot of things he's going to go back in the film room and love, and a lot of things in the film room he's going to realize that he missed. But I do think the big picture is this. Tyler Shough has now played well in 3 game-like settings. In 2 of those 3, he outplayed Spencer Rattler. And the other one, that second scrimmage, I think was pretty much a draw. Maybe you can give a slight edge to Spencer Rattler in that situation. But, look, why is that important? The fact that he is playing better in game time situations. Well, we've seen practice All-Americans, haven't we? I mean,
oh, yeah.
There's
one
one
in
in the quarterback room
room
right now.
Yep.
We've seen quarterback. We've seen all-Metairie team practice All-Americans. That it just does not translate into the game. And honestly, if that is where Shough would have landed, a practice All-American, we would have been very disappointed. Yeah. With him, you're seeing the inverse, a guy that practice-wise in scripted situations can look a little rigid at times, not always as comfortable, but when you pull those kind of restrictions off, he's played well. I think it's also important that, look, when you get in these game-type situations, you're going to have to respond to certain things. And he had to respond to a lot. Look, going into a 2-minute drill for your first drive is not easy, and yet he did it. And he let him down to the first points of the game. Just missed the deep ball to Kevin Austin on the double move. I'll get to that in a minute. Then, he throws the pick six. It was a great play by the corner, but, when Shough goes back and watches it, and I went back and rewatched all the Rattler and Shough snaps, he got the look he wanted, yes, but the corner, basically because he telegraphed the pass, the cornerback abandoned his responsibility on that play and jumped the route. He got cover three. That corner's supposed to take the 7 route, which was by Trayton Welch, the corner route from the tight end position. He's wide open on that play, but because he telegraphed the pass, he was able to jump it, pick it off, and send it back the other way. But look, the body language remained the same. He came back in, a couple of nice completions, and then got the double move to Mason Tipton for a touchdown. He also took a bad sack later in the game. He got hurt on the play. He bruised his knee, he said, after the game. He was walking around with a big old ice pack on his knee after the game. So I think there was a lot of good things. There were a lot of things he's got to get better at, but I think for a rookie, I think he showed some of the things that the Saints liked about him when they drafted him. And for me, in this competition, the guy that, if I got to pick one way he's going to play better at in a game situation or a practice situation, I'd much rather him play better in a game situation. And it appears Tyler Shough is trending in that direction. So that's a long way to say this. I think this is probably tied right now. I'll just call it this. It's as close as it's ever been. The one last little piece I need to see. I need to see Shough with the first team in a preseason game. Maybe then we can make the determination after that. I think he's earned that after this past performance. Preseason game number 2 back home in Jacksonville. I think Tyler Shough should roll with the ones, or as many ones as could possibly play in that game. What about you?
I always try to call it how I see it. During that first about week and a half of training camp, we both said, look, Spencer Rattler has been the better quarterback. He was the most experienced QB in that room, and he played like it throughout the first week and a half of camp. But at that turning point that you mentioned, ever since then, about a week and a half since then, it seems like Tyler Shough has kind of taken the lead over Rattler in that brief period of practice. So you could argue there may be what and what at practice. Maybe Spencer Rattler has a bigger lead at practice, but for me personally, I value the games a lot more than I value the practices, because that was the argument for Spencer Rattler last year versus Jake Haener, because Jake Haener was outperforming Spencer Rattler in practice, but when it came to game time situations, Spencer Rattler, especially in that third preseason game last season, he was the better quarterback. He wound up getting the start when Derek Carr was out. So now we go back to this year. We only have one preseason game to go off of, so I can only go off of what we've seen so far. And I am going to temper expectations a bit, because it's not like Shough was spectacular. He wasn't prime Drew Brees out there. Right. You mentioned the sack. You mentioned, him kind of staring down the receiver and throwing the pick six. Those things can't happen. But when you compare him and Rattler, he was the best quarterback on the field Sunday, during that game. You look at Spencer Rattler, he had 5 series, played nearly the entire first half. In those 5 series, punt, turnover on downs, punt, a fumble that he lost, and another punt. And it's worth mentioning the turnover on downs, even though it happened on the goal line. It's not like he drove them down the field to get to the goal line. They were down there because the Chargers muffed the punt. So Spencer Rattler, in his 5 series and almost a half of football, scored 0 points and wasn't able to get any consistent offense going. Tyler Shough comes in. He plays 6 series. Field goal, punt, pick 6, touchdown, punt. His first series, in the minute and 40 seconds that he played, was more effective than all 5 of Spencer Rattler's series, driving him down the field, getting the field goal. He throws the pick 6. That's a red mark on his card, yes. But Kellen Moore, especially after the game, was very complimentary of the way that he bounced back from that. Because being a rookie, in your first game, throwing a pick 6, some guys can get down on themselves after that, but he didn't get gun shy. In fact, he was the opposite. He let that thing fly to Mason Tipton for a huge touchdown, the best play of the preseason, you know? So Tyler Shough, I was very impressed by what I saw from him yesterday, and you mentioned how much better he has been in those game-like situations compared to the practice situations. So going off what I saw on Sunday, going off of how I've seen kind of him catch his groove over this last week and a half of practice, and you look at the situation between Rattler and Shough, there's no excuses. I mean, they're both playing with the backups. They're both playing against backups. If anything, Tyler Shough is probably playing with the third strings, and you know, Spencer Rattler had a few starters in there. Like, he completed the pass to Juwan Johnson. So from what I've seen so far, I do give a slight edge to Tyler Shough. It was Spencer Rattler after that first week or so, but after seeing that preseason game, after seeing how Shough's been in practice lately, you mentioned it being a tie. We both said at the start of the preseason or at the start of training camp, we both think a tie would go to Tyler Shough. I think Tyler Shough has a slight edge, so to answer our big picture, has Shough surpassed Rattler after Sunday? I'm going to go with yeah.
Well, I think he's certainly trending in that direction. You just cannot overlook the growth. And then when you kind of watch him side by side, for instance, I didn't think Spencer Rattler was that bad yesterday. I thought he was just kind of okay. I didn't think he was bad. I certainly don't think he was great. He had a couple of misreads. I thought he did some nice things with his feet, where he was able to make some decisions where he had a lane open up, and he was able to get plus yards. There was that big third down scramble. I think he even admitted after one that he probably should have threw one where he ran it. There might have been one around the goal line, one of the throws that they had where he could have dumped it off. I don't know if it got into the end zone, but he could have dumped it off. I think it was the first scramble that he had. Both guys had some blitzes thrown their way. I don't think either guy excelled against the blitz. I know the touchdown to Mason Tipton was against the blitz. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a fantastic blitz pickup where he stonewalled the guy. But in Rattler's case, and then you watch Shough's case, there were probably bigger mistakes. There were bigger mistakes, obviously, with Shough. We talk about the pick six, and then the sack he took was bad because he almost got himself hurt. He could have ran. He could have dumped it off. That was a bad decision. And like I said, he almost nearly paid a big price for kind of tucking that ball in and really turned his back to the field, that he could have really gotten hurt there, and it really could have hurt the team. But I think when you look at what Rattler was able to do and you look at what Shough was able to do, I thought Rattler stayed, fairly middle of the pack, middle of the road the entire game. Nothing overly exciting, nothing overly catastrophic. The sack wasn't on him. He probably could have stepped up, but the sack fumble wasn't on him. The O-lineman got beat. But when you watch Shough, you do see a live arm. You do see a guy that was handed right away a very difficult set of circumstances. His body language never flinched. And you're starting to add up all these sort of little data points about what he does in these game-like situations and how he looks better in those situations. That's why I think they're neck and neck in this thing. And this week of practice will certainly be interesting because I want to see how the reps rotate during the week. Is it going to be Shough one day, Rattler one day, Shough one day, Rattler one day? We'll see how it goes. And then when you get to the second preseason game, I think we both agree, even if Shough's not the guy when the regular season starts, I think he needs to be the guy for this preseason game because I think you got to see him with at least a few starters in a game-like setting because we haven't really seen that yet. That's the last piece of information. Going against another team's, I guess theoretically, their starters. They may not have all their starters, but theoretically that could be their starters. So I think that's kind of the last piece of information you need to gather. That's why I'm not ready to call it just yet. But I do think you have to acknowledge the growth from where Shough was to where he is now, while also understanding neither guy was perfect. And regardless of who they pick, wins are going to be difficult this year. They're going to be difficult because both guys, look, they're getting a lot of vanilla looks, and it's preseason, and you can't always overreact. You don't overreact to preseason. But we've seen it before. The regular season obviously hits different. So there's going to be some growing pains because Shough is a rookie. And we act like Spencer Rattler has this world of experience. He has 6 games. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's kind of a rookie as well. So there's a lot of things there are a lot of factors going to play into this. But as you watch both players right now, I do think it's encouraging that, at least to the Saints organization, that their second-round pick, the guy that they hope would be ready, is getting closer and closer to getting ready. It's just a matter of, okay, can we start him week 1? And did he outplay Rattler enough? I think right now, if they decided to go with Shough, the worry was if it was clear Rattler outplayed Shough throughout the entirety of camp and you still went with Shough because he's a draft pick and guaranteed contract and all those things, that you could lose the locker room. Well, I think now you've probably crossed into, okay, this thing's close enough to where if they went with Shough, the locker room would understand.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing I noticed about Shough yesterday was what we noticed about him in OTAs and minicamp. His affinity and ability to throw the deep ball, which is something that Spencer Rattler, we talked about, has kind of struggled with. And I just think that's so important in this offense because we saw when the Saints were rolling last season how important the deep ball was. You know, Rashid Shaheed all the way down the field, Chris Olave down the field. We talked about this team not having a big receiver. A lot of their receivers kind of have that same profile. They're smaller, they're quicker, they're faster. So when you're throwing to a Rashid Shaheed, when you're throwing to a Chris Olave who has told us he wants to run more deep routes this year, when you're throwing to a Brandon Cooks, a Mason Tipton, you know, the ability to take the top off the defense is so important, and it's something that Tyler Shough so far has shown that he had. I mean, that was a dime to Mason Tipton, and he had another one to Kevin Austin Jr. that seems like it just kind of went off of his fingertips, maybe a little bit too far, but I think it could have been catchable from Kevin Austin Jr. So I like to see Tyler Shough getting the deep ball going. From Spencer Rattler perspective, obviously he has not lost this battle yet, but I need to see, just like we're talking about Tyler Shough's improvement over the last 3 weeks, I want to see some of those leaks from Spencer Rattler. I want to see, you know, you mentioned the blitz. I don't think either guy handled the blitz particularly well. Spencer Rattler didn't handle the blitz great. He really didn't throw a deep ball, so you really can't grade him on, oh, you know, it looks like his deep ball is getting better. I did like, you know, some of the mobility that he showed. That's probably the best thing I could say from his preseason debut, but you know, I need to see some of the things that we've criticized Spencer Rattler for. And again, it's only been one preseason game. We still have plenty of time. We got 2 more of these things. Spencer Rattler will get some big playing time in both of those games. But I want to see him improve on some of the things we've seen last year because I think both of us, and even if Spencer Rattler was here himself, he would say the way he played last year was not good enough. And it is not going to win him this job this year.
Yeah, and I think if we did ask him after the game last night, he was kind of bummed about his performance. I think he expected a little more out of himself. The first drive was fine. Got down, penalty brought him back. It should be noted that the penalty that brought him back, had it not been called, they still would have been short of the first down. I went back and rewatched it because I forgot the exact set of circumstances. And then they were handed that gift. I mean, they get the ball at like the 17-yard line with the muff punt. I mean, that was the perfect opportunity, you know, for him and the offense to really, you know, kind of set the wheels in motion for the game. And it kind of felt like they were a little off-centered the entire day after they couldn't punch it in from the end zone or from the 1-yard line on 4th down from Kendre Miller because they certainly had, you know, multiple opportunities. You mentioned something about Tyler Shough and those deep balls. You know, the throw to Mason Tipton, the double move, perfect.
Great route.
The throw to Kevin Austin Jr., double move, missed him by an inch too far. That's basically 2 guys with 2 different speeds. But let's just be real there. Yeah. So in Shough's case, he's got to understand who he's throwing to in certain situations. He can't throw it to Austin like he's throwing it to Tipton and vice versa. So I think that caught him a little bit. Could you imagine? I mean, that was his second pass of the game. If he'd hit a touchdown on a double move right there, that would have been certainly something. But I actually thought the way he handled the 2-minute, the body language was really good. And I love the body language after the pick 6. And there was another play after he took the big sack. I think it was his second or his last. No, it was his last drive of the game, where he gets blitzed. He's sort of in no man's land a little bit. He's about to throw it. He pulls back. It looks like it could have been a catastrophe, and he kind of breaks contain, gets to his left, and Dante Pettis does a nice job of coming back to the ball. He kind of guns a 21-yard broken route comeback on the sideline. When I was watching, I was like, oh, he's running this. And all of a sudden, he threw it, throwing to his left. I thought that was another really good play by him. So when you go back and watch what he did, that's why I said it's a really good preseason starter because there was enough good to get excited, but enough bad to really keep the rookie focused and not get ahead of himself.
Absolutely, and we still got about 5-6 minutes left here, you know. So now as we go into they still have a few more practices in Los Angeles. I know it's been potentially talked about that maybe they could get some joint practices going with the Rams out there. What happens next for these quarterbacks? What are you looking for from Tyler Shough, who outperformed Rattler in that first game, and from Spencer Rattler, who is nowhere near losing this job yet? This is still very much in hand for Rattler.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, my big sort of take away is, okay, how do you distribute the reps now? Because they have been going back and forth. Do they do that the same drill this week? They probably will, just in practice, and then they'll probably make switch guys up for the second preseason game. I think all of them should play the preseason finale week 3 against the Broncos. So I think that's ultimately where I'm going to next in terms of this quarterback competition. Because if you're the coaching staff right now, you've seen a lot of different things except that aspect with Tyler Shough with the ones in a game-type setting. And from what he showed you, he's a guy that clearly the game-type settings are not too big for him. It's just a matter of, can he improve and do some of the things that he has to do and avoid some of the mistakes that he made and just get better as a rookie. He's a rookie in his first preseason, so he just needs as many reps as certainly possible. And then, I always thought they probably wouldn't declare it after this game, but I thought they would want to have their starter in mind by basically today, after the first preseason game for the Arizona game, if for no other game, but for the Arizona game, so they can get started planning. But I wonder if that's maybe put on hold a little bit to where they just get one more game in them to see, okay, maybe we need to focus in and see who really gives us the best chance to win week 1.
Yeah, and there's a couple other positions I want to talk about as well. One being a quarterback's best friend, running back. Alvin Kamara didn't play on Sunday. We saw Kendre Miller go. We saw a little bit of Cam Akers. We saw Velus Jones Jr. We saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There's been a lot of talk on this podcast and outside of it on who's kind of going to spell a few of those touches from Alvin Kamara at that running back position this year. Are we any closer to knowing that after Sunday's game?
Look, I thought Kendre Miller did some nice things to start. I thought he had decent vision. He had a nice kickoff return. Then he got stuffed on that on that 4th down. He caught the first pass of the game, first play of the game. I thought he ran with some decisiveness. I think he's in good shape. I think he looks quick. I was a little disappointed in Cam Akers. Didn't really see a whole lot out of him, despite some opportunities that he got. Velus Jones Jr. is a very unique player because he's listed as a running back. You can tell he's running these he's a hybrid. He's a running back, wide receiver hybrid, so he's getting the jet sweep. They do this route where they'll run these routes downfield, and they'll just send him straight to the sideline. And it's almost like he's the safety valve. He had 2 or 3 plays where he caught it, made a couple guys miss. His speed and cutting ability is real. So if you're asking me who stood out of those guys, I would say as a pure running back, I like Kendre Miller. But I have continued to like what I've seen out of Velus Jones Jr., and I think you saw that last night a little bit. Even on the play where he got tracked down on the first jet sweep he ran, I think it was on that red zone situation with Spencer Rattler. Had that been blocked a little bit better, he might have turned the corner and scored a touchdown there. So I like the vision for Velus Jones Jr., and I see why they brought him in, and it's going to be hard to keep him off this roster.
Yeah, and we still have about 3.5 minutes left. I got to ask you about the last quarterback as well. Jake Haener gets in the last 5 minutes of the game. We've talked on this podcast a couple times on, is this officially a 2-man race? Jake Haener probably got a little less time than I expected him to get. He went out there. He was 5 for 8, 41 yards. He had a nice escape from the pocket, but then he threw an interception. Is it now finally fair to say, without a shadow of a doubt, we're focusing in on Rattler and Shough, and Haener kind of needs to take that third wheel seat?
Absolutely. And look, that was happening in practice all week. He's been with the threes, with the scrimmage. When he talked to us on Friday, you can kind of tell that's where he's at mentally. He's going to be with the threes. And that's where, look, right now that's where he has to be. I just think, he's a guy that I think he's fantastic in the meeting room. He's fantastic at explaining the offense. He's fantastic at, getting you to understand what he's thinking. But I just think he's a little limited physically, and I just don't know if he's going to be able to overcome those physical limitations to be an effective quarterback, or at least a backup quarterback. Because I think right now he's comfortably in 3rd place. And look, he did some nice things yesterday. But by no means to walk away thinking, wow, maybe he needs to get back into this race. I think the coaches have honed in on Rattler and Shough, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, Jake Haener, and we said, coming out of some practices, wow, Jake Haener was the best player on the field, but that's been his MO. He's a camp crusader, but that's why I said I do not care what Jake Haener does in any of these training camp practices. I need to see him in a game setting, in the preseason, against a team that's not wearing black or gold, and see how he performs. And if you take the interception out, he would have had a decent day, but you can't take out the interception.
Yeah.
It was a bad throw. It was a bad decision. So, yeah, Jake Haener settling in in the 3 spot, and it just seems like that's his place in this offense with this head coach. And now with us having about just over a minute left, there is one more person I have to ask about. He's kind of gone under the radar. I don't think we've talked about him on the podcast yet. Charlie Smith, on that last field goal attempt from 50 yards, he looked like he could have hit that thing from about 60. Charlie Smith with the huge leg. Is there a legitimate chance that maybe Charlie Smith can work his way into being the Saints kicker? Because I think a lot of people were impressed by that.
No.
Dang.
He's not. It's going to be Blake Grupe. He's had one of the worst camps of anyone out here. He's missed. He's well over. He's got to be close to under 50% right now with his kicks in practice. He had a nice kick. Obviously, the 50-yarder would have been good from 60 or 70. I saw the 70-yarder from Jacksonville, but that's one competition I think's been settled. Blake Grupe is going to be the kicker this year.
Yeah, and and that's what I've always told people. Like, Blake Grupe is the more accurate one. Maybe he doesn't have that rocket leg. Charlie Smith has the rocket leg, but he doesn't have the accuracy that Blake Grupe has. So now, you'll be out in California a few more days before we come home. Then we've got another game Sunday on Fox 8 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know you got a lot to look forward to, Sean.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'll be back Friday afternoon. Should be fun to get back to the Southeast Louisiana heat. It'll be tough to say goodbye to this weather out here, but got to do what the job says to do. So, yeah, we'll hang out here for a couple more days, a few more practices. We'll see if they get any joint practices with the Rams. That'd be nice. Then I'll head on back to good old New Orleans at the end of the week.
Looking forward to it, Sean, and we are out of time. Thank you guys for tuning in for us. Go ahead and catch us next time on Overtime.